futures. Today, it's all about us ladies, because this is our month, and we're going to celebrate it in the best way that we know how. And how we do it is that we have a lineup of two fabulous women speaking to particularly women and women's issues where money is concerned. And that is Mapalo Makhu, who actually needs no introduction, and Hwalani Mabaso, a general manager of Absa, and I'm going to tell you more about her later. I'm then going to wrap it up with one of my favorite topics. A man is not a financial plan. All three of us will then be available to answer your questions. So please ask away. Please stick them into the question box and we will answer all of your questions before we finish off this morning. Don't forget that after each webinar, we upload a quiz at www.waystosave.co.za. And if you'd like a chance to win the 10,000 Rand, make sure you watch all these webinars and take the quiz challenges. Remember, you can't win if you don't take the challenge. It's really as simple as that. We will be announcing the winner at the end of August. Aside from the draw for the 4 1,000 Rand prizes that we have at each webinar, and remember that we do the draw live on Facebook on a Wednesday, we also have a very special reward in this webinar, and that is a copy of Mapalo's new book. We're going to do a draw from everyone who has attended all of our webinars, including your participation today. And Mapalo will have the pleasure of announcing the winner live at the end of this morning's webinar. So let's get cracking onto our speakers then. She is an award-winning personal finance coach, speaker and journalist, and recently authored You're Not Broke, You're Pre-Rich. With a BCom finance degree and a postgraduate diploma in financial planning, Mapalo founded Women and Finance to educate and inspire women to take charge of their finances and make the best financial decisions that they possibly can. On a continental level, the universal appeal of her message has seen her collaborate with when she leads Africa to provide her unique brand of jargon-free financial education. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mapalo Makhu. All yours, Mapalo.
Thank you so much, Prem, and thank you to Absa for hosting me today. And thank you so much, ladies. I know there's a couple of men also who are joining us, and I promise you we're going to have fun. And the conversation is going to be real, that much I can promise you. And since we are in Women's Month, I wanted to do something a bit different. And I thought, let the topic of today be the road to financial success is not linear, okay? And I want to bring this topic really because of the environment we find ourselves in right now with COVID-19. People are uncertain of their jobs. People don't know if, their income will be reduced or they'll lose their jobs. So there is a lot of uncertainty. So for me today, my topic is the road to financial success is not linear. What do I mean by that? The road to financial success is not linear literally means that the road to financial success is not a straight road. It's not just you wake up, you say, okay, I'm going to get a degree, I'm going to start working, I'm going to be a millionaire, I'm going to get a family. All of these things are wonderful, they're aspirational, and that's what we should go for, right? But the road to getting those things can be challenging, can be hard, can be heart-wrenching, okay? And that is why I thought I should start with my own financial journey, okay? So first of all, one of the earliest memories of money was when I had just finished high school and I was meant to go to varsity. But my parents at that time couldn't afford to take me to varsity. I had 2 siblings already who were in varsity, and it was like, okay, you need to take a gap year. And I am so thankful for that gap year, because it was in that time I started reading on personal finance, reading on economics, and I thought to myself, you know what, this is the career I want to go into. Okay, so that's the first kind of memory or challenge when it comes to money that I remember. It was painful that my peers had gone to varsity and they were living their best life, and I was at home, but I had this hope and belief that, you know what, I too will get there. I knew it was just a year, but I knew that I was going to get there as well. So that's the first one. The second one, when I had my baby is 5 years old now, right? He's a baby boy, 5 years old. I remember when I was pregnant and I was telling my friends, we're celebrating, a lot of my friends said to me, okay, so now you're going to get a bigger car, right? I was driving a Chevrolet, a 2007 Chevrolet. And at that point, I felt like, you know what, I need to get this car. I need to get a car, because that's the thing that you do when you get a baby, right? You need a bigger boot, all sorts of things. But I said, actually, I cannot afford to buy a new car right now. If I do, I know my financial situation is going to be tight. And one thing about me, I never ever want to be in a tough financial position. So I said, you know what, this baby is no bigger than I am. So there is no way I'm going to get a new car. That was the second challenge or obstacle that I had to go through when it comes to my personal finances. Then the third one, this is actually very interesting. The third one, my husband and I, we were looking for a property, because that's the next thing that you do. You're married, now you have a child, you need a bigger house, right? All of these things that we are meant to kind of do over and over as we grow older in our careers, as we get married, all sorts of things that are prescribed for us. Then I remember we went to view a property around our neighborhood that we liked, because we had bought a flat and we're staying in it. And now it was time to move on to bigger things. And I remember we went to view the property. We loved it. It had a big yard. It was amazing. This is the property we wanted. And we had been saving a little bit, but we knew that, you know what, our finances are in good standing. So we'll definitely get a bond from one of the banks. And we went to the bank the following week. I think we viewed it on a Saturday. Then 2 days later, we're like, okay, we actually can afford this. We went to the person who was selling the property. They said, no, the property is off the market. So within just a few days, the property that we loved and had set our hearts on was off the market. And I said, okay, but why? How come? And the person who was selling the property told us that, no, there was someone who bought this cash, right? And I thought to myself, goodness, there really is something here. If we had to wait for a couple of days to see if the bank can approve our bond while someone has saved up and has bought our dream home cash, it means that maybe we are doing something wrong, okay? And I understand for sure, not everyone can afford to buy things cash. And obviously, even with us, we couldn't afford to buy things cash at that time. But I thought there must be something here, right? And I'm a very trusting person. When it comes to my goals, I'm like a bulldog. I want to go for them. And I said to my husband, I said, okay, what if we moved back home? What if we moved back home for a year of sacrifice, to say that if we want any property that we have put our hearts on, any property that we do desire within our budget, we can get it and not have to think about someone else sweeping it off our fingers just like that. And he thought I was crazy. He literally thought I had lost my mind. Who would want to move back home when you're married, you have a child, and you're living in the burbs, you're looking like life is good. And I remember he was very hesitant, but he actually had me out. He said, okay, I think we can do that. And for a whole year, we moved to his parents' house in Soweto. And for a whole year, we saved tons of money. One of my weakest points is I love eating out. I love eating takeouts. And in that year, we not only saved on our bond because we had hired our apartment out, but we also saved on eating out, right? But for me, why am I telling you all of these things? The road to financial success is not linear. We don't just get there by hoping for it, wishing for it. We get there by planning. We get there by making sacrifices. We get there by realizing that we are in control of our own destiny and finances. Okay. Then the last one, when it comes to my own personal journey, we only have one child at the moment. And oftentimes, a lot of people would ask me, family, friends, when are you having baby number 2? But they have never, ever asked me if we are financially ready to have baby number 2. We could have said yes, for sure. But for me, I do not feel comfortable enough. And that's one thing we do not often talk about when it comes to having kids. Are you planning for your children? You know, so for me, that has been my financial journey so far. But it has been about sacrifice. It has been about discipline. It has been about writing down my goals and knowing exactly what I want and willing to make those sacrifices to make sure that I do reach my goal. So it brings me to some of the things that I think every single woman should do to get closer to their financial dreams. Okay. Number 1, get comfortable talking about money. Actually, it's one of the questions in the polls. How comfortable are you talking about money with your partner, with yourself? Because that's the beginning. If you ignore your bank statements, if you ignore your pay slip, you can't even go through it. If you ignore your statements from your creditors, then you have a very uncomfortable relationship with money. And for you to get closer to your financial goals, you need to get comfortable talking about money. Especially, I often see married couples who don't talk about money at all, okay? And they're afraid to discuss money. And obviously, that is because we come from 2 different backgrounds. Our upbringing is completely different. But I think we must always remember what our goal is as a family. I mean, my husband and I, we have actually gone to the point of we write our things down. We have an Excel spreadsheet where we have our goals. Okay, this is what our finances are looking like this year. But by the end of this year, this is where we want to be. And we check in on each other. I do what you call the money date. The money date is both of you come together and set a date. You actually put it in your diary. You go as far as putting it in your diary. And you say, you know what? This day, we're just going to talk about our family's finances. To say, okay, are we still on track? If you haven't started the conversation, I can understand it can be hard. And a lot of people always tell me, but Mapalo, we end up fighting all the time. We end up fighting, it becomes nasty. And I understand that. But I think maybe you need to do what I call your money personality test. So the money personality test kind of digs deeper to find out what are your money personalities. Are you a spender? Are you a saver? But actually, where does all of those things come from? Why do you behave the way you do? So in my book, I actually interviewed a psychologist, and she said, some people operate from an internal locus of control, and some people operate from an external locus of control, right? Someone who operates from an internal locus of control says, I know my worth, I know I'm enough, and whatever sacrifices I need to do right now for my future, I can do them without feeling ashamed, without feeling like people are going to judge me for the decisions that I take. But those who operate from an external locus of control say, I want the car so that people can think I'm successful. I want the house right now so that people can think I'm successful. I want all of these things, even when it hurts, even when you can't sleep at night, knowing that you are here, right? So you need to understand each other and say, okay, actually, this is how I have always viewed money. But from there, say, okay, this is how we viewed money, but we are together. We are in this relationship together. Whether you're married or in a long-term partnership, you need to put down your goals and say, okay, these are now our goals going forward. This is what we want to achieve. This is the outcome we want with our money. So if you can sit down and do that together, that exercise is very, very powerful. If you are finding it hard talking about your finances, I think if you can just remember that it's not about the fact that you are in debt, you are ashamed, all sorts of feelings around personal finance or money. think about, what is the end goal? What do I want to achieve? What does the outcome look like for us? 5 years' time, will we still be in the same position? Because if you don't talk about it today, it's not going to change 5 years later. If you do not decide to start having that conversation today without getting mad at each other, the situation is not going to change. So just remind yourself of that. And I can see here it says 61% of us are comfortable talking money with partners and 38%. That's a good number, okay? And which brings me to the second point. If you are in debt, I know this is a big, big one. I mean, especially right now with COVID-19, it has impacted so many people's income. You need to create a plan. So I was involved with City Press, Absa, Money Makeover, and we had these 6 candidates come through, and most of them were in debt. And I love what one of the winners, Catherine, said. She said that they were never able to talk about money, but once they started writing things down and having a plan and creating a realistic plan for the both of you, something that, you know, both of you can compromise and say, oh, actually, I never thought, you know, this cost so much, or let's put a little bit of money away for fun, you know. And I think that's another thing. When we come to planning our finances, we also need to think about fun. We need to think about the things that set our heart on fire, okay? So if it's hiking, do that. If you are in debt, choose things that are not going to cost you a lot of money. And there are 2 ways in which you can pay off your debt, okay? The first one is the Snowball Method. So you start off with a small debt and move on to the next big debt, and so on and so forth, right? The other method is that you can pay off the highest interest rate first. So this requires you to actually write down your debt. You cannot tackle debt if you do not know how much you owe and who you owe, okay? So you need to list all of your debt. If you owe Edgar's, if you owe your credit card, if you owe whatever you owe, you need to list it and put the interest rate that you're paying down. Actually, maybe one of the questions that you can answer me on the comment section there is, if you do have debt, do you know how much interest rate that you up? Do you know how much interest rate you are paying towards each and every debt right now? So you need to start, because the debt with the highest the debt with the highest interest is the one that costs you the most money. So when it comes to debt, you really have to bite the bullet and say, I want to get out of debt and I want to stay debt free, and I'm going to commit to becoming debt free, and I'm going to create a plan. And it has to be a family thing, right? As well, when it comes to money. If your kids are used to you at the end of the month going to eat out or have some fun activities, you need to bring the whole family in. You need to bring them all in and say, you know what? And obviously it has to be age appropriate. And you have to speak to your children. You have to speak to your partner and say, you know what? We need to fix this mess. We need to get out of debt. Okay, so that's the second thing. If you're in debt, you need to create a plan. Okay, do not be afraid to make uncomfortable decisions. If it means that you need to let go of the car, let go of it. If it means you need to move back home, move back home. If it whatever it means for you. And you know what? Often I find that we actually already have the answers to the questions that we have, or the things that leave us sleepless at night. But we are so afraid to just take that step. We're afraid to just say, you know what, I do not want to live in this mess anymore. I am going to take control. Oftentimes, we have the answer already. We are just afraid. So be fearless in making those decisions, knowing that you're making those decisions for your future self. Okay, so that is number 2. Number 3, it's actually one of the questions in the polls. Build an emergency fund, okay? And one of the questions I asked is, do you have an emergency fund? Why is an emergency fund important? It is important because there is no one who has never not had an emergency. And I know it can be disheartening, because oftentimes when you talk about emergencies, we hear a lot of experts telling us, you know, you need 6 months worth of your salary saved up in a liquid account, or 12 months. Those are noble things that you should try and have a goal and the goal should be that. But for me, I always say, what is it that you can actually afford right now? What is it that you can do to make sure that you do have an emergency fund? So what is the point of me coming on here and telling you that you need to have 6 months worth of salary, and you're thinking, goodness, that is impossible. So you end up not doing it. So for me, I always say, start small. Start with 5,000 bucks. Start with 10,000 rand. Just any solid amount that you can start off with right now. Even if you say, okay, in the next 3 months, at least I will have 10,000 in my account that I know is set for emergencies. Start with that. And for me, that's the most important thing of my message, especially when it comes to women, when it comes to emergency funds, or when it comes to money, when it comes to personal finance. We have all this bar set up for us, 6 months, a year, this and that. And we get disheartened when you hear a year and you're like, goodness, I don't even have 100 bucks in my account right now. How do you expect me to have a year's worth of salary in my account? So start small. Start with what you have. Make that commitment to yourself. And the easiest and the best way to do that is by paying yourself first. By paying yourself first, I mean, it is saying, whatever I earn, I'm going to keep 10% of it, and I'm going to transfer it into a completely different account. Because I've been there too, when I've said, okay, this money in my account, I know I'm not going to touch it. It hardly happens because I have needs, I have things that come up. But if that money is not in my account, it makes it that much easier. And I saw one of the questions here. Someone is saying, I keep on digging into my emergency fund. It's because it's in your transactional account. It's in your normal account, and you find yourself swiping it at Woolies, So it definitely needs to be in a completely separate account. Maybe a 7-day notice, speak to your bank and find out all those options that are available. All right. I know I have 30 minutes, so I'm trying to go through this a bit quickly so we can really have a good discussion. Then number 4, know the difference between saving and investing. And I think this is a big one. This really is a big one, because savings literally is, I'm saving for a goal in the next couple of months. It might be to pay the deposit on the bond. Like, we moved back home to make sure that we had full on deposit. We had lawyers' fees. We had all sorts of fees that are involved when it comes to buying a house. So make sure that you know the difference. Saving is, I'm saving for a goal, I'm saving for a car, I'm saving for my child's education for next year so that I can pay it off once off and get some sort of a discount. You need to differentiate that and put goals to your money. I have often in the past saved money, but then I blew it all because it didn't have a goal. So put goals towards your savings and your investments. And what do I mean by that? So investing is for the long term. One of my investments is, I know that my son, he is 5 now, but I know for sure that when he goes to varsity, it will be fully funded. I have a tax-free savings investment for him that I started for him when he was 2 already, and I try to max it out every single year. So distinguish that and make sure that you allocate the right money towards your savings and your investments. Then the 5th thing I want to talk about is retirement. Okay, before I get to the 5th thing, I think oftentimes, and I did mention this a little bit earlier, savings also can be for fun. I truly, truly believe, I'm not the type of person who says, don't buy your coffee, don't, all sorts of things. I don't really believe in that. For me, I think, look at your bigger goals and make sure that your money speaks to that. Make sure that your priorities are set in your budget. So going back to writing down your, if you have debt, write it down. If you want anything, budget for it. I think our parents were, I think especially, some of the lessons I've learned from my mom is that you need to be patient. You really need to be patient when it comes to your finances. Don't rob your future by making short-term decisions now based on instant gratification. So make sure that you save also for fun. Make sure that you save for your holidays. Make sure that you save for the things that you love, things that are a priority to you. And don't use credit. Don't use credit. It's not sexy. It's not sexy. Okay, so retirement. I know this is a big one, and the numbers in South Africa are just shocking. I know this is a study that was done a long time ago, but I don't think that it has changed that much. It showed that only 6% of South Africans are able to retire comfortably. And I'm even more worried about how much of that 6% are women. You know, in that 6% who are able to retire comfortably, how many of those people are women? I don't know, but I can imagine that the numbers are even worse for women. So I remember I did a coaching session a couple of years ago on a young graduate who had just started out, and she had just become admitted as a lawyer, and again, you know, wanted to buy the car, wanted to move out of her mom's place, and you know, and she said she spoke to someone about retirement. It's like, no, you're too young to start your retirement. To start your retirement, and I said, that is crazy. That is crazy. You must start saving for retirement as soon as you start working. As soon as you can, start saving towards your retirement. Women live longer than men. And on top of that, there is the gender pay gap, which is a big reality. So already as women, we are kind of disadvantaged in many ways. So you need to start saving for your retirement as soon as you start working. And one of the easiest ways to do that is through your employer. So if you have your pension or provident fund with your employer, don't just take the default amount. Go to your HR and say, okay, what other options are there for me? If you can increase your retirement fund contribution, do so. Because one thing I've learned, it's just habit. It's habit. It's people. We sometimes lack discipline, or we think that I can do it tomorrow. I can do it another time. Is to say, okay, normally the default will be a lower percentage. Go interrogate and say, can I increase this my contribution? Because as soon as the money hits your account, you probably won't save towards your retirement. So make sure that you take that opportunity and take advantage of your retirement funding, pension or provident fund. And another way that you can also increase your retirement funding is, if in your company you're lucky enough you get an increase every year, it is important to not increase your lifestyle to that maximum. You know, often I find that people, you know, you earn 15,000, you earn 20,000, you earn 50,000, and the following year, let's say they increase it by another 10% or whatever the amount is, or you get a promotion or you move companies, then your lifestyle now must reflect that, okay, I no longer earn 20,000, I earn 30,000. Then your lifestyle must reflect that, okay, I no longer earn 40,000, I now earn 80,000. And yet you are saving nothing, and yet you are investing nothing. And I often ask this question. I know it's controversial, I know it's gonna hurt, but if you make 100,000 a month and you spend 100,000 a month, and you don't have any investments and you don't have any savings, then you're poor. Then you really, really are poor. You have nothing to show for your money. And another question that I follow up with that, I say, okay, this is how much you earn. And let's say you worked for 5 years, 10 years, whatever the amount of years have been. What do you have to show for it? Can you pinpoint to say, okay, I've worked for the past 7 years, and those are my savings, those are my investments. What can you show for the many years of your hard work, all of this year? So I think with retirement, you really need to take it seriously. And another way you can supplement your retirement also is through a tax-free savings account. Yes, I can see there's a lot of going on. Sandra Tato talking about tax-free savings accounts. Those are important. I love tax-free savings accounts. Like I said earlier, I use one for my son, for his education, for myself, and even for my husband, who all have tax-free savings accounts. And remember, with tax-free savings accounts, it doesn't matter. As soon as you have your child's birth certificate, you can open up a tax-free savings account for them. That is a gift that is like just unmeasurable. Okay. Then I want to talk about a little bit about risk. I think we don't talk enough about risk component to planning our finances. What do I mean by risk? I'm talking about life cover. I think we know that is important, sure, but there is even more important things, what we call living benefits. Your living benefits, your trade disease, your critical illness. And studies are showing, and claim stats from all the different insurers, they're showing that more and more and more women from even younger age are claiming against breast cancers, tumors. They're claiming against a lot of trade diseases. So I think that is something that as women we need to take charge of, because we take care of everyone. If God forbid you were to find out that you have some sort of illness, you need to have some sort of trade disease or critical illness to make sure that if it is required, you are able to take care of you. Remember, your household still needs to run. Your kids needs to go to school. Everything still needs to run. Your finances don't wait and say, okay, we understand that you're sick. They keep on going. Bills keep on running. So you need to do that, to take care of yourself. And lastly, we need to have wills as women. We need to have a will, and predominantly, not just because you want to leave your assets, but if you have kids and you have minor kids, you need to appoint a guardian for your kids. Okay, you do not want your child to end up with the auntie that you don't like, or the one that is not a good fit for your child. You know your child or your children better than anyone else, and God forbid anything happen to you, you need to make sure that they are with the right guardian. Okay, so I know I have said a lot and I'm trying to still be on time. I don't know how much time I've gone through now, but in closing, I want to say to every woman listening, number one, you can do hard things. Okay, you can do hard things. So if you need to take some hard decisions right now when it comes to your money because things are not looking amazing, or you just want to make sure that they improve or you reach your goals much quicker, do not be afraid to make hard decisions. Okay, number two, do not rob your financial future by focusing on the short-term stuff, as I said earlier, by using credit to fund your lifestyle, credit card overdraft, all those things. If you do have them, create a plan, as I mentioned. Create a plan to get out of debt, okay? We know, men, when you sleep and you have debt, you don't even sleep well. Give yourself that freedom, and it is within you to reach it, okay? Then number three, you are capable of financial success. And lastly, I know this one is a bit of a tricky one, and I brought it last because I know people often, it's a touchy subject, but you need to be a bit selfish. You need to be a bit selfish as a woman and say, you know what? I know I put the needs of everyone in front of my own needs, but when it comes to your finances, you need to start taking control and ask the right questions and say, okay, what does my future look like? So you need to be just a bit tad selfish as a woman. And I want to read all the questions before I'm looking at your comments, and I do want to read them, and I think Prem will give us an opportunity to do so. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. I hope you got a couple of gems out of that, even though it's only 30 minutes. I don't know how I was supposed to do that.
Thank you, Mapalo. That was amazing. You definitely managed to stack a lot of whatever we all want to hear in that 30 minutes. So well done. There are some very specific questions for you, and I am going to touch on them. What product can you suggest? Okay, that one I'm going to save for Hwalani as well. What is the best financial move in the current economy? Depositing a huge amount, say 50,000 Rand into a car installment, or investing it like bonds?
Okay, so for me, I look at the interest rates, right? So if your car right now is costing you a lot of money, but okay, maybe let's backtrack. Do you have an emergency fund? Or do you feel secure enough that your job is fine and you'll be able to take care of your bills? If that's the case, then we can start talking about, okay, how else do you invest this lump sum that you do have? And remember, the markets are a bit turbulent right now. So look at saving it perhaps in your bond. If you do have your bond, pay a little bit extra. Remember, the interest rates are at an all-time low. So by just doing that one exercise, you are saving yourself thousands and thousands and thousands of rands much later on. So look at those options. But for me, the first thing is, do you have an emergency fund? Is your job secure? You will be fine. You don't need that cash. Then put it into your bond if you want to save yourself thousands of rands. Maybe you can split it half, right? 25,000 into your bond to make sure you save on the interest rate. Then if you have not maxed on your tax-free savings account, use the other balance to max your tax-free savings account.
Great. Thank you. And you did touch on the subject of having a roundtable discussion with kids, but at what age should kids get involved? Any views on that?
Prem, my son is 5, and from the age of 3 already, we started talking about money with him. And I'll give you an example. Before we even buy anything, sometimes when I do go to the shops with him, well, before COVID-19, we'd go to the shops with him or grocery shopping, and the first thing he does is look at the price.
Good for him.
I promise you, I actually have a video of him here, and he looks at the prices. I don't think it makes much sense, but you can see already the awareness. So from a very young age, I mean, kids are taught amazing things in primary. If they can grasp that, believe you me, they can grasp the simple principles about money. We have a piggy bank in his room as well. He will tell you, oh, mommy, I have some money in the piggy bank. He finds a coin. He will tell you, no, go put it in my piggy bank because I know I'm saving for my transformer. So from a very young age, kids are capable. Really, I think for me, that's one thing I always want to tell people, that kids are capable. It has to be age appropriate. Of course, I can't start talking to him about interest rate and bonds, but just that awareness, and also talking about budgeting, saying, okay, do we have enough money? When we go shopping and he says, oh, I want this, I said, okay, but it's not in our budget. We don't have, it's not here. You said you want a chocolate, and that's what we're getting today because, remember we spoke about this before we left. So it's just that awareness, that full awareness.
Sure, I agree with you. And there's a question here about your snowball method. It says, with snowball debt, does it mean that you have to suspend paying other debts, or you continue paying the minimum until you are done?
You absolutely have to continue paying the minimum, because if you do not, it will mess up your credit score and put you in a much tougher position. So you continue with the minimum that is required, but you say, okay, I will start with the smallest one first. So that's why you have to go back to your budget. And in your budget, you have to find, okay, do I have extra money in my budget? You have to relook at your budget and say, okay, this can go. DSTV can go. I know some people want to kill me every time I say that. It's like, oh, goodness, why do you want to take away my entertainment? You have to do what you have to do to make sure you get to where you want to get to, okay? So look into your budget and say, all right, this thing can go. This, and also when it comes to finances, Prem, that sacrifice, normally it's not for the very long term. And this is where people just miss the point, that it's not about, I'm going to live like this forever, but it's making those short-term sacrifices to actually get to the lifestyle that you really, really, really want and deserve, okay? So now you've looked at your budget and you've said, okay, I can either find money in my budget, and oftentimes you do. Then secondly, if you can't, or you want to do that bit extra, find ways to make an extra income. Social media, don't just keep on scrolling on other people's things. What other skills can you provide? What expertise can you provide and put out there so that, people can see what it is that you offer? So definitely you need to keep on paying the minimum, but the snowball method is saying, okay, I will focus on the smallest debt first, keep on paying all the other ones, the minimum, but here, the extra that I've found in my budget, I'm going to put towards this so that I finish it off quicker. And that's the best way to pay off debt. You need to put in a little bit more, because if you put in the minimum, it will take you years and years and years and painful amount of years.
Sure. Thank you. So I'm going to leave it there for now. There are other questions, but we'll field those a little later. Mapalo, thank you very much. That was simply amazing. You have touched on a couple of things that I want to touch on. So you've just made my life that much easier. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prem.
So it's now my pleasure to introduce to you Hwalani Mabaso, who is a Provincial General Manager at Absa Wealth and Investment Management. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I need to acknowledge that none of this would have been possible without Absa Bank. And again, a huge thank you to Absa Bank for the sponsorship that allowed us to have these amazing webinars. So Hwalani is a board member for Women in Tech, an international organization with a double mission, and that is to close the gender gap and to help women embrace technology. Hwalani was a finalist in the Standard Bank 40 Under 40 Young Achievers, and in 2019, she was listed in Mail and Guardian Women Changing South Africa. An advocate for women empowerment, Hwalani holds a master's degree in business management and is currently completing her doctorate with a focus on turnaround strategy, business rescue, and entrepreneurship. And here to talk about these topics, I present to you Hwalani Mabaso. Hwalani, are you with us? Okay, so it seems like we've lost Hwalani there. While we get her back, perhaps I should present on my topic for this morning. So at the outset, I want to reassure the men in the group that this is not about men bashing. Men, you are very important in our lives and we acknowledge you. But I just want to talk about why it's important that every woman should have her own financial plan. So the topic I have chosen, and Tamron, if I could ask you to pull up my slides, please. Tamron. Okay, so while I wait for those slides to come up, I can still chat, okay? So why is it that from times immemorial, women have allowed men to take over the running of their financial affairs? It's actually quite simple. It's all of these social messages that we've been fed over the years. Remember, we are always told that money is power, but we should not be powerful. We should actually be nice. Girls are caretakers, nurturers, accommodators, but we are not necessarily breadwinners, even though we probably earn more than our male counterparts. We are told that women must spend their income on children and households because these needs come first. And then Women are so reluctant to ask for perks and increases simply because they are not sure that they deserve it. So is it any wonder then the effects of these messages have left us failing to take responsibility for money matters? We still believe in leaving the important financial decisions to the men in our lives. We strongly believe that we are incapable of handling money, and we leave our own financial planning in the hands of our partners. And remember, women will start off with their fathers. Their fathers will handle their monies when they're single. When they get married, that responsibility falls on their husbands. And then, of course, when the husbands die, women will leave their financial affairs in the hands of their sons, regardless of whether the sons are capable or not. Even if they have daughters who are capable, they will go to their sons. And I know I'm touching on insensitivities here, but it does happen. We fail to plan adequately for ourselves, definitely. And then, of course, we accept whatever is thrown our way, and then we become miserable. We're miserable because we don't know what's going on. So, these beliefs have served our mums and our grandmoms well in the past. Why should we change these beliefs now? I'm going to share some compelling reasons with you as to why we need to take charge. Global and South African life expectancy is on the increase. On average, we are living longer, and we are outliving our partners and our spouses more often than not. We certainly make a very vital contribution to the economy and in nation building. Remember about the rock. We are the rocks in this country. We make up an increasingly large part of the working population. We are constantly accumulating personal debt, but no savings. And then we say we're stressed about our finances. Let me share some other interesting facts with you. 37% of South African households are headed by women. Nearly 80% of South African women between the ages of 20 and 50 are mothers, yet less than half are married or living with a partner. More than 60% of people who have store cards are women. And we still say that we cannot take charge of our finances. So here are the facts. Women earn less than men. That is a given. And Mapalo touched on this. We have shorter career spans. Why? Because we stop working for a while to bear children and raise those children. Sadly, our divorce rates are increasing. More and more women are finding themselves left alone in the prime of their lives. Yes, on average, we are living longer than men, sometimes by 5 years, even 10 or 15 years. And that's a long time to be alone with no money. We are increasingly heading up households. We are accumulating debt all the time. And we increasingly having to raise our children on our own. And of course, we are unsure of retirement provision. So ladies in the group, I want you to focus. I'm going to ask a question and I want you to focus, and I am going to share some of the answers that were gleaned out of some research that was done. So this is what I want you to focus on. I would be rich if I had. Think about it. What would your answer be? I'm happy for you to put it on the chat, on the group. I would be rich if I had. Okay. Think about it, and while you put the answers, let me tell you some of the responses, and I'm sure a lot of you will identify with these responses. If I had taken risks and not procrastinated, if I had not been afraid of the stock market, if I had used my potential to the fullest, if I had done all the things I loved to do, if I had dared to take chances while juggling career and family. How true was that last one? I think we can all identify with that. So, ladies, what does this mean? Clearly, we as women need to take action, and the time to act is now. The question is, where to from here? I'm going to finish off by sharing 10 tips to financial freedom. And whatever I am about to say has been touched on ad nauseum by all of the speakers that came before me. There were some pearls, there were some gems in whatever every one of our speakers have said. I'm just basically going to round up and reinforce what we should be doing if we want to make inroads in our own financial future. First and foremost, have a budget and stick to it. I cannot emphasize this enough. Remember, Gerald talked about the language of money. What is the language of money? It is figures. They are figures. It's the figures that talk to you, the rands and cents that talk to you. Remember the advice that he gave you, very sage advice. So you have to have a budget. You have to stick to it. And if you have a budget and start saving before you start spending, then like Mapalo said, you will be paying yourself first. You definitely need to reduce and manage your debt. Again, we've had two speakers that really got stuck into debt and how one should handle that debt. So I don't want to say anything more there except to remind you that you need to reduce and manage your debt. You need to know your net worth. What is your net worth? It is simply the difference between what you own and what you owe. So if the difference between what you own and what you owe, what you owe is greater, then clearly you're not doing something right. Remember, year on year, when you sit down and do this exercise, your net worth needs to be growing. If it isn't growing, you're not doing something correctly. You need to relook at your assets. You need to relook at debt. You need to relook at where your money is going. Again, Mapalo touched on purchase appropriate risk cover. I don't want to say anything more there, but just remember, I always liken this body of mine to a money-making machine. I get up every morning, I go to work, and I am turning out money. But machines have a knack of breaking down as well. Sometimes they can be fixed, sometimes they can't. Remember that the risk cover you buy is what will determine whether this machine is going to continue to provide that money each month. If you can identify with that, then I think you know what I'm talking about. You need to organize your paperwork, especially your will, again touched by Mapalo. My question has always been, how often do we look at wills? Do we look at it often enough? Remember that a will is a revocable document that needs to be changed every time there is a life-changing event. And what is a life-changing event? Someone dies, someone's born, taking on new debt, acquiring another asset. Remember that these are all life-changing events, and your will needs to be revisited when any one of these things happen. Learn about your tax liability. A lot of people forget, a lot of people don't know that you don't only pay tax when you are alive. When you die, some ugly words come in. Words like estate duty, capital gains tax, executors fees. You need to know and understand how all of these things come into play when you die. Remember, your debts do not die with you. And if you have not taken these liabilities into account in your planning, some of your precious assets that you wanted your family to inherit will be sold to pay off this debt. Remember that your debt never dies with you. You need to list important names and numbers. When you die, especially if it is suddenly, you do not want your family running helter-skelter, looking for the people that you dealt with, not knowing where your stuff is. So you need to make sure all of your paperwork is in order. And together with that ordered paperwork, you need to list the names of your important names, like your financial planner, your accountant, and your attorney. Very, very important. Most importantly, you need to work together as a team to financial freedom. If you're embarking on marriage, remember that having a discussion with a financial planner is just as important as having that discussion with the wedding planner. I'm always amazed by the fact that couples will spend hours and hours, days with a wedding planner for a once-off event that's over in a couple of hours or a few hours, or in some communities in a few days. Yet they will never think to appoint or have a discussion with a financial planner for a lifelong event. And ladies, remember, money in your marriage is a lifelong event. You're going to have to talk about money. And isn't it amazing that the only time couples talk about money is when they are arguing? Don't let that be you. And even if you're already married, you probably have children, your girl children. Teach them this. Siblings, younger siblings, friends, neighbors, tell them how important it is that you know your partner's money habits before you actually embark on a marriage. Remember, if you are the saver and he is the spender, then you're going to come up against some really, really bad arguments in your marriage. So that in a nutshell is what you should be doing. That's what you should be taking into account on this road to financial freedom. So ladies, my advice to you, act now. Take charge, seize the moment. Put a plan into place. Prove once and for all that nice girls can and do get rich. All it takes is a financial plan and not a man. Thank you. So I see we do have Hwalani here with us now. Hwalani, I have introduced you, and I'm going to hand over the reins to you. Thank you.
Great, Prem. Talk about one of those entrance, which is like a grand entrance. Thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon, everybody. I think we've already reached 12 o'clock now, and I'm so privileged to be here, and welcome to everybody who has joined us since this morning. I am so privileged in the sense that, you never really get to a point where you're sitting with a lot of women together and really talk about money. And I think those are conversations that we should be having all the time. So today I will be talking to all of you about side hustling. And I'm actually theming this to say side hustling is fashionable. It is something that we should all be doing, because when we do that, we actually have some more money or extra income coming through to our pockets. So first and foremost, what I want to really touch on is the fact that, with the COVID-19 pandemic, what we have seen is that a lot of businesses have terminated employment. People are getting retrenched. I think every second day you're hearing of somebody out there who has actually been retrenched, or somebody who has lost a job, or a contract that has come to an end. And this on its own is really just showing us that entrepreneurship is so important, but also making us think about side hustling, and it's making us think that you need to be out there and do something else besides your 9-to-5 job. I always say to people that when we're comfortable and we have jobs, we don't stop and think about what is likely to happen tomorrow. I think with the current pandemic, you have seen a change and a shift in mindset for a lot of people. If you look at people in the entertainment industry, for example, when the COVID-19 happened, it disrupted a lot of them from an income perspective. I am almost certain when I say this that businesses today have been impacted, but future businesses are coming up as we see more and more people trying to do something different. So, what exactly is a side hustle? A side hustle is a secondary job that brings in extra cash. You know, the benefits of that are quite obvious in the sense that this is extra cash, by extension, some diversification of your income, which has got the potential to grow and replace your income entirely. It's more than just a part-time job, really. It's really something that is helping you to create assets and opportunity and make sure that you've got passive income as well. You know, I want to share a very interesting story of when I was growing up, which I think a lot of us can relate to. I come from a family of 6 kids with both parents. And I remember as a young girl, my dad at that point really trying to do a lot of other things, even though he had a job on the side. I remember him selling cabbages, selling oranges. And I think at that point in time, I probably did not realize what he was doing. I also want to share a story with regards to my mom, who at one point actually was selling this things such as your secondhand clothing. She will go in a bus all the way to Durban and come back with all of these clothes and will have to wash them. As children, we were so excited with just a job of having to wash different things. But what I did not understand or value at that time was that what she was doing was really to create that extra source of income so that as a family, we could be comfortable. I remember again, there were ice lollies. I think a lot of you out there can relate to this. We used to call them ice blocks, but these are actually just ice pops that you put in the freezer and you sell them to the kids and you sell them to everybody when it's very hot. Simple things that our parents did or simple things that our mothers taught us around side hustling. Why is it important? I really just want to talk about why side hustling should not really be an afterthought for any of us out there. I think as we're talking about women and it's Women's Month, it's important to remember that side hustling can help you with multiple sources of income. And that on its own is so empowering. Can you imagine the feeling of having to make an extra income? In my view, that never goes out of style. It's something that we should celebrate all the time. Because when you do that, you are actually making sure that you're not only having a benefit of money, but a benefit of learning, a benefit of practicing new skills, exploring a passion, and making sure that you're empowering yourself so that you can actually have much more value outside your job or your paycheck. The second thing that I want to touch on in terms of the benefits for side hustling has got to do with the fact of protecting yourself in case you lose your job. I think I touched in my opening around people that are getting retrenched. So if you really are sitting out there and you think that your job is safe, I really want to urge you to think again. I think today technology is advancing at an unprecedented pace, and it is disrupting more and more industries and making many jobs redundant. So think about it. You don't want to sit and hope it never happens to you. Instead, you should be prepared for it mentally as well as financially. One way of creating that is ensuring that you've got additional source of income so that you don't solely, sort of remain hoping that you will have money or rely on your full-time job to pay your bills and provide for your family. The last thing you want to get to is when your company tells you at any given point in time unexpectedly that they're going to let you go or that they don't have money to actually really retain you in the business. So that on its own can end up putting you as well as your family in very stressful financial situation. And without an emergency fund, which I think Mapalo touched on, that means that, ladies, you will be having challenges in terms of paying for your rent or for your bills for the next couple of months. One other thing that I think is so important, which is the third thing to talk about, is just how the side hustle can actually allow you to pay off your credit card, your debts, or your bank loans, or anything that you actually owe sooner. I think if you really look at a side hustle, it gives you extra income per month. But if you, for second, just imagine a side hustle that pays you 1,000 Rand extra every single month. That on its own is 12,000 Rand in a year. It's the simplest and the fastest way of making sure that you do have enough money in your pocket to actually go and pay more and more of your debts, and then reduce your interest. I think when Mapalo was talking about snowballing effect, can you imagine if you also have an extra income that is actually
Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. It seems like Hwalani is having connectivity problems. I think what we'll do while we wait for her to come up, I'm looking at the polls, and only 26% of you seem to have wills. The other 73% said no. So I think you have homework here to do, guys. You need to go and have a look at this. And will doesn't necessarily have to be a long-winded or complicated document. It's a simple thing. It's a simple set of instructions as to what happens when you die. So please take a look at that and get going with it. And yes, it seems like it's very, very possible to have a side hustle as well as a 9-to-5 job. And as Gerald says, it's not, it's out of necessity that you need to have a side hustle. Tamrin, can we bring Mapalo in, and let's ask her to tackle some of these questions for us as well. Hi, Mapalo. Welcome back.
Hi, Prem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's.
Technology is failing us today, but we'll hold the fort. We'll hold the fort.
Yeah. So maybe you can answer this one. What kind of products should beginners invest in after clearing debt?
Well, congratulations, first of all, for clearing debt. I know it's a long, tough road, but you did it. And I think the first thing, like I said earlier, a tax-free savings account is always a great place to start. But what I do want to say about a tax-free savings account is that don't take it as a short-term investment. I know that account or savings account might be misleading when interpreted, but take it as a long-term investment. And the reason why I say this is the maximum limit is 500,000 that you can put into a tax-free savings account, and you reach that almost 500,000 in 13.8 years. So in almost 14 years, you have over 500,000 that you have physically saved or have invested. But remember, compound interest is doing its work in the background, and in that 15 years, you literally can become a millionaire. So do not take for granted tax-free savings account. And I think I saw a question here saying, can you withdraw from a tax-free savings account? Yes, you can, but view it as a long-term investment and make sure that you put it for the long term so that you can really see its benefits. So if you're just starting out and you want to invest for the long term, let it be a tax-free savings account. And remember to differentiate between an saving and an investment. So if you are saving to buy a car, to buy your property, whatever it is, make sure it's a savings. You're going to access it quicker. So it needs to be safe, it needs to be accessible. It can give you a little bit of interest, but it's mainly safe. But for your long-term investment, tax-free savings account to begin with, and actually when it comes to investing, or talking about money, I find that people want all these sexy things, Bitcoin, they want this, they want that. Start with the basics and build up from there, and build your confidence. And that's the thing about personal finance. As soon as you start building your confidence and setting the right foundation, it becomes easier to invest in shares and all sorts of things. But before that, let's bring it down back to basics. Save for a goal, then start investing. Tax-free savings account, remember it's a long-term investment.
Thank you, Mapalo. And then there's one here, the simplest way of paying off your bond. Always pay more. Remember that the more you pay in, the quicker you will finish that. And Gerald and Arabile covered this very well in their webinar, which I think was the second webinar that we had. So please, if you can go and listen to that, you will get the answers that you're looking for. Let's see. First time product for a first time investor. I think you just covered that in terms of tax-free savings. So I think that one's taken care of. Let's see what else. Someone's asking for a template. Kindly advise where I would be able to download a basic template for a will. I'm not sure if this can be done. We've got Gerald here. Gerald, if you could answer, I'm happy for us to post the template on this website. I'm happy to give it to you to put on. You can just say yay or nay. Okay, I will be a wife soon. What advice can you give? I've heard of joint accounts, separate accounts. How do I still keep my financial independence in marriage? Mapalo, that one's for you.
Yeah, I love that question, Prem, because, I always say, if you are in a relationship, you're courting each other, you need to start talking about money even before you get married, okay? And what does that look like? So even before you walk down the aisle, before your big day, and I think Prem spoke about this, that when it comes to the big day, we speak so much of it. Our family gets involved. Everyone is speaking about it, planning, but we miss the very, very important thing about talking about our finances. How are we going to handle our finances together now that we are family? Who's going to take care of what? But even before you do that, you need to start talking about the marital contracts that are available. Are you going to get married in community of property? Are you going to get married out of community of property with or without accrual? And you need to know all these three options and know which one is suitable for you. Oftentimes, people make very emotional decisions like, oh goodness, you don't want to get married in a community of property, you don't love me. But we need to look at the reality of the times we live in and say, okay, I'm an entrepreneur. If things go down south, how am I protecting our family? So love also protects, right? We know that, we have read that love protects. And in some of these contracts, getting married out of community of property, maybe with accrual or without accrual, it is protecting your marriage as well. Because if your partner or yourself are an entrepreneur, we never know what can happen. So you need to start having those conversations with your partner before you get married. Then once you get married, you need to sit down and say, before that, you need to sit down and say, okay, we are planning this big wedding, but what do we want our lifestyle to look like? And what are we willing to give up to make sure that our lifestyle looks like that? And it's a discussion and it's compromise. It's hearing where both of you come from and coming to your own conclusions. Do not go to the conclusions of your friends, your family, colleagues, how they look like they're living. You really need to live and breathe and reflect the type of lifestyle that the both of you want and make decisions around that. So it goes back down to saying, what is the goal for our finances. We are starting right now in year 0. In 5 years' time, what will our finances look like? Will our decisions that we're making today really reflect the things that we say we want? Because oftentimes we say, okay, we want, the amazing lifestyle, we want our kids to go to private school, we want the house, we want the car. We say these things, we throw them out in the air, but our actions speak otherwise, okay? And for example, if it means having a smaller wedding, have a smaller wedding. If it means not going out as much, that's also acceptable. Have friends also that can speak to the vision that you guys want for your life and say, okay, if our friends want us to go out every other weekend and this is the goal, then hang out with better people. But it has to be a holistic thing. But the conversation has to be there. It has to be an open conversation of being vulnerable with each other and your dreams and your goals and putting them down to paper.
Mapalo, you raised an excellent point. I think every courting couple needs to have the conversation around whether you want to be married in community or property, out of community or property, with accrual or without accrual. Folks, it is so important that you have this discussion, and it is so important that you understand what each of the terminology means. Please go and make it your duty to find out and have that conversation. I think it is really, really important. There are other questions here. I don't think that we're going to be getting Hwalani back on. Unfortunately, she's having some connectivity issues, but the recording is going to be on the website. We are going to add the recording of her presentation on the website, so you will be able to go there and listen to her. Again, black tax in marriage, I think a lot of that was covered by previous speakers. I want to ask this question: renting versus buying a house immediately after marriage, and is renting a waste of money? Mapalo?
You know what? I think every time I answer this question, Prem, I'm always careful because I know owning property is such an emotional thing, right? I've been there and I've felt the same things, but I always say define it for yourself. I think oftentimes, and I know my style of talking about personal finance is more go in, dig deeper in yourself, have conversations with yourself. And for me, I always say, okay, what is it that you want? First of all, your home is a lifestyle asset. It's not an asset that's going to give you money. You need to live somewhere, right? So whether you're renting or you are buying, that's a lifestyle asset. It does not bring money into your pocket. It actually, owning a home, we own a home right now, but it takes money away from us. We are responsible for the lights, we are responsible for municipality rates, we are responsible for fixing everything, but it makes us feel good. It makes us feel so awesome that I see my son running around. We have a pool. It's a lifestyle asset for me that enhances who I am. I come home and it's my sanctuary. So it has to be, when we talk about financial goals, it has to fit in with who you are and the outcome that you want. So don't look at it as, if I'm renting, I'm wasting money, I'm paying someone's rent. I know there's so many of that nonsense that goes around on social media, and it does not make sense. Do what suits you and what is best for you, because either way, you need a roof over your head. It's either, what can I afford? What is my affordability in terms of renting, in terms of buying a property? But definitely buying a property and living in that property will cost you more money most times. But if it's a long-term thing and you have bought in an area, you feel like, we can live here for a couple of years and enjoy the space. You want to put nails in the wall and not get to worry about what your landlord is going to say. That's it. It really comes to that. But if we're talking about an investment property, on the other hand, that's a completely different conversation altogether. And I think people should not mistake that. The renting versus buying to live in is a completely different conversation. When you're buying to invest, it's an investment property that you're going to rent out to other people. It's something that is completely different. But between the two, do what feels right, do what agrees with your pockets, do what you have in your long-term plans. Don't look at it like, oh no, we're paying someone's rent. that analogy I don't agree with.
Sure. Thank you. And somebody asked the question, does saving for retirement, REs and stuff count as investments? Definitely. Remember, you've got your short-term, medium-term, and long-term investing, and REs would definitely fit into your long-term investing. Retirement shortfall. I only started working permanently in 2017, and I was already in shortfall with my retirement contribution. And even though I am contributing monthly, how is this calculated? How this calculated? What determines the shortfall or gain in the retirement fund? Yeah, Mapalo, you just want to touch quickly on, how do we make up those shortfalls?
Yeah, it's like I said, my view on personal finance, I know it's always a little bit different. I mean, we talk about the numbers, like 6% not able to retire comfortably, but I look at people from our community, people from our background. Comfortable means different things to everyone, right? And so I don't want you to beat yourself up about it and say, oh goodness, I haven't saved up and I don't have that 75% that is recommended. Do what you can do right now. I mean, that was your situation. We can't take away the fact that you didn't have a permanent job. So right now it's, okay, I have a job. What can I effectively do going forward to make sure that I at least cover that? And also look for opportunities to say, okay, how else can I increase my contribution? How else can I make an extra income to make sure that I do cover this? And if you have a pension fund, like I mentioned, or provident fund, have them try to increase it and lower your own expenses, or find ways to make an extra income. Hwalani was speaking about side hustles. And I think for us, especially Black people, we have come from a background of parents who have been side hustling all their lives. I often hear the word and it sounds sexy now, but our parents have done this over and over and over. They've sold things, they've been in stock fells. So find ways to make sure that you put a little bit extra with your employer, or just putting it into a retirement annuity or a tax-free savings investment for the long term. But don't beat yourself up about the fact of something that you actually didn't have control over. Everyone wants to work, that's what I believe, and everyone wants to provide for themselves. So you didn't have that opportunity. Now that you do, see how much extra you can put. But that's we can all really do the best we can with what we have. All these benchmarks, man, they just drive me crazy.
Do the last question, quick answer, please. And then we want to announce who's the winner of that book. So should a marriage contract be drawn up before paying lobola? Yes or no? Lobola?
100%. So before we got married, we went to see a lawyer and we decided to get married out of community of property. Not because I don't love my husband and I don't think he doesn't love me. I'm very well versed in marital contracts, and I think I actually was the one to bring him to light that getting married out of community of property. So you definitely need to do that.
So the short answer is yes.
Yes. Oh, I don't give short answers. Sorry. Yes.
Sorry. So guys, here you have it. The short answer is definitely yes. Mapalo endorses that it's a yes. So I think we've come to the end of this. And before we conclude, I just want to, there were lots and lots of questions, and my apologies that we couldn't get through all of the questions, but remember that they will be addressed in the box and on social media. So if you want to look out for that, you will get your answers. But we've come to the exciting part now where Mapalo is going to announce who the winner of her book is.
Yes.
Mapalo, over to you again.
Thank you so much, Prem. I'm going to make this short. Thank you so much for participating, for engaging. And the winner of my book, You're Not Broke, You're Pre-Rich, is Thembisile Bengu. Congratulations, Thembisile.
Great stuff. Congratulations, Thembisile, my apologies. Congratulations. And I hope that you're going to put that book to very good use. So, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of all of our webinars that we've been holding during Savings Month. On behalf of SASI, I want to thank each and every one of you for taking part and for being such, you've been such active participants, and we really hope that this has served you well, and this will send you on the path to financial freedom, not just women, but there were lots of men on the group as well. And we want to say a huge thank you. Once again, a very, very big thank you to Absa Bank for the sponsorship. And of course, it would be remiss of me not to thank Cameron and Connect Media for the work that they've done. Gerald, you also have played a huge role in putting this together. Thank you very much, my friend. And with that, I want to sign off by saying that, listen, like I said, this is not a once-off event. We've got the website open. Please go back, listen, re-listen, look at all of the ideas that we've put through, and make it a point of getting yourself onto the road to financial freedom. This is what financial resilience is all about. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and have a great long weekend. And to all the women, happy Women's Day. Enjoy the day, and I hope you get spoiled. Thank you. Bye. Bye.